Welcome back. Well, we're dead in the center of this shit coronavirus thing. So we're gonna up the video thing so you got something to watch. Besides, let's make a deal. That's Johnny's favorite show. But we're gonna do a little kill the coronavirus competition here. Until this thing's over, we're gonna do it for at least 3 weeks. And so we're gonna do, and I get to make the rules. Because if I was making the rules, things would be different. But the way we're doing this is we're going to have categories. We're going to do terrestrial, we're going to do a streamer, we're going to do a dry or a wet. Depends on how long this thing goes on, at least 3 weeks. You have to send me your fly, and then I get to judge it. Johnny, Jeremy, Kelly, Chris, we judge your fly. Winner of that gets a $250 gift certificate to the shop. And then at the end, we're going to take the best of the best, no matter how long this takes. If it's 3 weeks, great. If it's 5, hopefully not. We'll do 5 weeks. We'll come up with different categories every time. But at the end of it, we're going to give away a new Sage or a new Renzetti of your choice. We're going to put that up on Instagram. We're going to have a viewer's choice. And so it's to be whatever. If it's 3, it's 3 categories. But everybody's going to win the $250 gift certificate, and the grand prize winner is going to get that plus the rod, or it's either going to be a Maverick or a Payload rod, and it's going to be, like I said, the Renzetti of the 1000 series. So on we go. So what we're doing today, and this is going to be one of the first ones, terrestrial based. And I'm going to do a really old school hopper here. I love this thing. It's one of my favorite hoppers. It's a Gartside Hopper, super old school, and that's going to be the thing. This is the rules for the terrestrial base. It has to be 100% natural, no synthetics, no foam, absolutely no foam, no epoxy, 100% natural. Can be a wet, can be a dry, I don't care what it is, but it's going to be a terrestrial based, completely natural. You can use glue, you can use lacquer, whatever, but no epoxies, no foam, no synthetics. So this hopper, these are kind of cool. This is a Gartside hopper. I'm going to go just a little off of the original, but I want you to see this fly. This fly, I was fishing with my cousin. It was kind of new, and right now everything you see is a really high riding hopper, and that's cool. I mean, everybody's got used to foam, and you get to see it. Man, they got everything except, sex parts on those things. Those things are just ridiculous. Some of them got, I think they got eyelashes on some of those damn things. These things were a little more generic in the day. And I'm going to tell you, the day that we were fishing, there was a lot of people. It was a great hopper bite. This thing got an eat, got a look on virtually every cast. I mean, for 2 hours, the thing just lit it up. And I mean, it sits really low. It fishes really well, but it's not like, this isn't like the foam world. You've got to dress these, dry them. It's a little bit more fly fishy-ish, old school-ish. So, but as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. And so what we're gonna have, and on hook-wise, any 3X hook, I mean, if you like the hopper hooks, the hopper hooks got a little bend to them. I'm not gonna use that. That would be like your TMC, like this 302, that, they've got a little bit of bend to them. They're a little bit lighter wire. Most any 3X, like a 710 or a 1710, I mean, anything in that realm that's short enough, but the hook's the hook. I'm gonna tie it on a ring eye, which is a straight eye 2460. The one I've got here is on 2461. It's a black hook. Same hooks, but just one's black. But I'm going to tie it on a ring eye. It was not traditionally tied on a ring eye hook. It was tied on a down eye hook. I really like ring eye. I like flat eye hooks. That's just personal. You can do whatever you want. It's not going to matter. But just, get it to the length is all you're looking for. I try to lean away from the one. Often you're going to see these, and a lot of these hooks are going to be 1 or 2 extra strong, meaning they're thicker wire. I lean away from it a little bit, especially with my naturals. The lighter hook I can get, they didn't have light hooks back then, so it's not that big of a deal. I lean towards the lighter hook I can get. And the 24, and this is actually the 2460, the 2461s are actually kind of set up as dry fly hooks, and I just used them so much as the trailer of my streamers. I liked that. I used it, especially the back hook, because it was so light, it fluttered. And that's why I used them for most of my streamers. So we've got the hook. I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna show you a really cool technique on spinning hair with this, because Jack Gartside's the one that showed me how to do this about 25 years ago, and he did it with 6/0 nylon thread. I'm gonna use 50 GSP, just color I like. Tail-wise, traditionally, this particular one here is mine, and this one has jungle cock shoulder, which we're not gonna do. It's just got a red tail on it. His were traditionally done with moose. Oops, sorry. We're done with moose body hair or whatever, moose mane or body. I'm going to use moose body just to keep it a little bit natural or traditional. I'm going to use superfine dry fly dubbing right here. I'm going to blend these. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that. And this one's going to be kind of a long one just because we can't do anything else. So you can bore yourself longer. So this one's I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this: traditional dubbing, just a finger dub, and then I'm going to loop it because I like to loop mine. I like the segmentation it gives you. And I'm going to two-tone that, and I'll show you how to do that. Then it's going to have a hackle. I'm going to use this is getting pretty beat up. It's a dark bar ginger. I don't really think hackle is, this is a traditional thing. A lot of flies had it. And I'm not certain, to tell you the truth, that hackle helps your fly float at all. In some respects, I think it gets wet and it maybe doesn't help it at all. But it's always been there, and I just like the look of it. You do not have to have a quality hackle on this. If you go back in time and look at the flies of that era, they were pretty crappy looking, really, because the hackle was long and nobody trimmed their hair very well. They just didn't care, I don't think. Even in the books you'd see them, it's like, wow, that's kind of rough. But so I'm just gonna use this dark bar ginger on my tan because it's a good contrast, it looks nice. The only thing I think it really does, it really helps separate your body and give you that kind of segmented look. So it's just, but don't go wasting a bronze, silver, gold, whatever in there thinking you're gonna really dial. Well, you can do it if you want, especially if you're buying your stuff from us, which we appreciate you doing. So if you want to use your gold, neck to tie a hopper body, great, do it. But anyway, this one's really used up, really old. And so the back feather is going to be the pheasant, and I'll go through that in a second. And then we're just going to have deer hair for the head. This is just, I'm using a little bit bleached. It's kind of it's a darker bleach than normal. It's not quite as bright as some of them. And so I like that, really light under, the throat. And the final thing, which is not on the original, is going to be the golden pheasant. This is a crest. I put this as the underwing, your flight wing for those. It's just, and Jess, if you're watching, she says I say sexy way too much. This is some sexy shit. This stuff is going to kick, all right? It's a flight wing, and you're going to dig it. So here we go. Try to find that hook that I lost already. There it is. So out that goes. We're going to have, and again, that's that 2460. I'm going to put this thing back in here, wherever that thing went. And so I can pick that up and kind of talk about it. So leave, just like always, leave a little space, and there's no real way. If the head's too big, it'll be all right. Because when you look at a hopper from underneath, it's basically, it's monotone, really, and and when you're looking at it from underwater, and the head's pretty long, so if you make it, if it's too long, great, it won't matter, but try to get your consistency. I just tie mine, I put it up here, and I just have where I like the looks of it. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, and on this particular fly, it's not going to make that much difference in how it fishes. So I'm going to leave myself a space here. So right about there is where I'm going to say I want my head. Got all these things all over. I actually tied that one because I had to practice. I haven't tied one in 2 years.
Watch your arm.
Watch my arm. Get your arm out of the way. That's Jeremy yelling at me. Been a lot of yelling going around here lately. Too many people, too many rats in one cage, we can still fish here. A lot of places can't, so we get a little tiny break. So I'm going to take this, and I just stack that, and I'm using a little medium swinger stacker. And this tail, and again, on the one I had here, I used red. You can maybe see it. I used red. It's just a feather on the back of the jungle cock. It's just really pretty, and it's a lot of, when you look back there, you'll see, frequently you'll see a little bit of red in the tip of the legs, sticking back. So anything you do with that, like when you want to dial this and make it your own, that never had that kind of tail. I'll put it in there. Some of them I do, some I don't. Some of them I use deer hair right here, just a short little bundle of deer hair, little tips, because that really, it helps the fly when it breaks through not sink. The hook's going to want to go through. This particular fly has so much built into it that stops that, that keeps it floating. It keeps it right down in the film. But what I want to do is I just want it long enough to stabilize that. So I'm right here. It's just enough. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in, and I'm not going to just start reefing on this, because one thing about deer hair or moose in this particular case is I'm going to leave it in there, and I'm going to work forward here. I'm going to cut that just, and then back up just a little bit, and I'm going to build that bulk with, and you notice it's a little loose right there. I left that kind of open. I didn't, it's not really hollow like deer hair, but if you notice, I'm not really cranking on that. And the reason is that's going to be flotation. It's going to trap air, and it's going to build the bulk. Obviously a hopper's got a thick body, and so it's going to build a little bulk, so you can leave it in there like that. Just don't crush it. You can see it's kind of even all the way through. And then I'm going to take some, which I got ahead of myself. I don't like to do that. I don't like to go back and forth on these. So I'm going to tie this in. I'm going to take some small gold wire. If you want to use copper, if you want, it doesn't matter, whatever. You're not going to see too much of this, but this is just going to be the tie down for the, but just like always, I'm going to take this, fold it over, if I could see the damn thing. So I'm going to fold that over so I can't, just so it doesn't release. That's going to be our counter rib. If you wanted to do it right there, if you wanted to tie it in back here, just short, so you're worried about the weight of that wire, it's not going to do anything. But if you're worried about it, you can tie it in right there. Now, I do a lot of this on my dry flies. I talk about this a ton because there's very few monotone dry flies. And so I'm going to use, this is Hendrickson Pink, you can see right there, and this is caddis, the cinnamon caddis. I use all colors. I think traditionally this was done with a creamy tan or a yellow. I don't remember. I have some of his original flies from, Jack passed away 5 years ago, I think. He was just a phenomenal tyer, Jack Gartside. He was hilarious. He'd always do this. I'm always doing stuff. Jack would always do this, and we'd do seminars together, and I'd be like, pull a rabbit out of your hat. He's always doing this. It's just a character. He's such a cool guy. But I think his original one, I don't remember, I think it was creamy colored body. And so when I do this, I want to show you something. I do this on my dry flies because I don't like to have one color. I like it to be broke up. And so what I do is I take, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this with a dubbing loop, but you're going to see both ways. So I'm going to take 2/3, 1/3 roughly. And when you do this, you just fold it over. There's a deer here and there. 1, 2, you grab all of it and bust it. 3. And then you don't try to get it blended. Like, you're not looking for a Hendrickson Pink cinnamon caddis blend. You want these to come, you don't look at it either. And you come in here and you just pull it and you dub it on, finger dub. I got a call from a guy, Bob Searle called me today, or emailed me today, and he said, when you're dubbing, is there a right way or a wrong way? I like to put mine on, I pinch it clockwise. And when you do that, and this you can think about this from a dry fly perspective, when you put this on, you're trying to make it kind of thick, but you don't look at it, because what you want to end up with is this mottled look. And you can see, I think you'll be able to see it on the side one here. It's just kind of, you just kind of blend it. It's kind of rough right now, but you can see it's two-tone. So when I start wrapping that, it's going to go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. It's going to have colors, all right? But that's a lot of dubbing to do right there. I'll just leave that right on there. Now I'm going to show you how I do, when I do my bigger bodies, when I'm actually dubbing, forget that dubbing's on there. It shouldn't be. I just don't want to. We got time. I'll do it how I should. There, it's gone. So pretend I didn't do that. So back to the dubbing. Now I'm going to do, this is Hendrickson, I'm going to take the Hendrickson pink, because there's no taper to a cat, or to a hopper. It's got a stubby little ass and it goes forward, and it's basically the same shape all the way forward. And so the thing about dubbing, and I've said this in a ton of my videos, dubbing does not float. It just does. Some dubbings don't absorb water as fast as others, and some of them do. I mean, some of them, your naturals will absorb water, which will make it kind of sink quicker. The naturals don't absorb it as much, but the tighter that stuff is, the less water absorbs in it. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take 1/3, 2/3. That's a little bit heavy there. And you see I just stranded it out. It's just in a long strand here. I think you can see that. All right, and then I've got a 2/3 piece here. I put them right on top of each other. And a lot of you already know what's going to happen. It's going to turn that into a variegated chenille is what it's going to do. But it's going to be a really, really tight spin. And so, but if you were doing it, you know, traditional scent, they dubbed it. So I'm going to come forward. Right there's where I had my head, I'm going to have my head length. I stopped right there. Now we're going to take the dubbing loop, open him back up, kind of get away from me. We're almost there. Now, take this, and again, usually on all my videos, I'm always saying taper, taper, taper. Make this thing, you know, you want to start skinny, come forward. Hoppers don't do that. So we're going to take it, it's very blunt. See how blunt that is on each end? We're going to put it in here, right to the, and you got the, doesn't matter which side's up. Hey, come back here. So get that centered, put it right close like that. And now you'll see, and I'm going to do it kind of slow, so the camera over my back, you'll see what is happening. And I'm just going to twist it like this, get it going, and I'll spin it, and you can see it's starting to go. It's going to get nice and tight. We're going to get a nice, and you see I'm getting that variegated, I'm getting different colors going through it. And so it's nice and tight. The tighter that you make this, the less it's going to absorb water. And the reason I like to do this spin is because you'll see when I put it on, it gives you really distinct lines. Like the underbelly of a hopper's got a really, cut. Broke my thread. I was sitting there spinning that, talking too much. That's never happened to me in my life. Wow, we will cut that. No, we won't. It's way more fun if I don't cut them. Well, I'm getting a body build now, aren't I? All right, so here I've got, back to this thing. I sat there talking, I spun it and spun it and spun it until I finally broke that thread. All right, so what you're gonna see is I'm gonna come in here and make this first turn. My wire's back here, so I can do a counter wrap. And I'm gonna work forward, and what you're seeing is that I get that nice variegated tubular body like this, and it's not one color, even after all that screw up. And so that's what I'm looking for, these, you know, it breaks. Just like when you look at a hopper from underneath, it's got these segmented bodies. But more than that, it just built the body really quick for me. If I hadn't broke my thread and had to tie it in twice, because I kind of hack job. All right, now we're going to take the feather, and again, on the old patterns, when you look at it, the hackle's long. I mean, and they did like 4 turns. I'm going to do a little bit shorter hackle than they would use on theirs in the day, but I'm going to keep it kind of right in the middle. Come from the bottom. You know, this is how I like to tie mine, and I like to do that figure 8. I didn't talk about it, but when I tie in my hackle, I like to come in, bump the from right shoulder to left, bump the stem, do one turn, come over from the other side, do a figure 8 around it. Now you can see the shaft still sitting out right there. 1, 2 turns in front of it, and that's what I crank down on. All right, there's nothing else to it than that. Now I'm going to give myself, I'm going to tie in a little bit, when I put this stuff on, I'm going to tie the wings on top of this, and I'm going to tie into that body. Because I don't want to have a bump there. So I'm going to give myself a couple turns right there, because you'll see when I come back and put my materials on, I'm going to kind of go over top of that. So now I'm just going to set, and I do this every time on these videos, I'm going to try to keep my hand out of the way for once. After a couple hundred of these, you'd think I could figure it out, but I'm going to try to keep this because I'm using my rotary. So I'm setting that angle, and I'm just going back, and I'm opening that up, and trying to keep that. Broke my material clip. That's why that wire's going around. So I'm going to come back here like that, nice and open, and on my own, I use a little bit shorter hackle on that, but I'm trying to keep it kind of closer to traditional. And again, on this hackle, if you want to use an Indian cape, if you want to use, you don't have to use really good hackle. So okay, I set that. I just captured my feather. Now I'm setting the wire the exact same angle as I did the hackle, just in the other direction. And so I'm going to go forward like this, and all I'm doing is catching that hackle so that when a fish grabs it, if you break the hackle, it's all, falls off. And so it's a super simple way to keep everything clean. You barely see that in there. Now I'm going to come back here, and I'm actually going to tie my feathers in right here on the body. That's why I left a little bit of If you don't want to do that, if you want to tie it in front, that's all right. This is just how I do my own. I mean, fly tying, everybody I talk to tells me, I'm self-taught. Well, for all practical purposes, almost everybody's self-taught. I mean, you have to just start and go. And fly tying's all about, you may come up with a new way to do this. It's the best way ever. A lot of it, people are just copying. I've been copying people since I was a kid. You have to. And so you might find a way to do that. And for me, if I had been back here, there's going to be a little bit of a bump. So when I tie materials in, they're going to want to stand up. So I come right behind that. That's why I give it an extra turn right there, because I'm going to tie my materials in, and then I'm going to go back forward, and hopefully there's a little bit of hackle. It just helps homogenize things so it's nice and clean. You don't have bumps going up and down. It's just how you like to see it. Now this is a kicker for me. This is the sexy side of this fly. I'm going to take this golden pheasant crest. I'm going to tie it upside down, and I'm going to tie it back so it's just back by the tails here. You're not going to see it because we're going to put another feather over top of it. But the idea of this, if you look at the flight wing, and a lot of people, you can't do it on this fly if you're going to send it in, if you're tying this. And again, you can tie any fly you want in the competition. But a lot of people use Swiss straw or something like that for that flight wing. And when you see a hopper in the water and you see it kicking, and once its wing gets wet, you'll see that flight wing sticking up. Andy Burke, one of the greatest tyers ever, you don't see him out there a lot anymore, but Andy Burke had a sunk hopper, and that flight wing was the kicker. It's always off to the side, and it was such an incredible fly. Fish it dry or wet. I fish it sunk all the time. And without that flight wing, absolutely wasn't as good. And I don't think this fly is as good without that orange underneath there. I also will use calf tail, just say if you don't want to substitute this, put a piece of orange calf tail under, or orange bucktail. Anything that gives you that reflective value underneath there of that flight wing that you don't see until, if you grab one, you squeeze it, you'll see it. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to come just about to the end of the tail with this. Oh, one more thing. I cut the tops of this up. Cut the top hackle off. Don't just leave the side hackle. We're going to come in here right beside this thing. We're going to just give it a couple turns and then pull it. Just get it so it's just, we don't want it really thick. It's going to get covered up a little bit. You can always go in here, and I use a whole one. If you want to just strip a bunch of fibers off, tie it in there, great. It doesn't matter. This is just, it's kind of a secondary, or it's an extra flotation, I mean. That one that's off to the side, don't worry about it. Now, I told you we'd talk about, okay, you're bugging me. Him over there. There's our little tie-in. Now, back to this thing. Okay, that's driving me crazy. You go. All right, this is your pheasant skin, right? This thing has so much use. I mean, you can pick any one of these feathers. If you do not have a pheasant skin, get one. It is like one of the most indispensable pieces of fly tying there ever has been, because you can use the rump feathers for different things. You can use the cheeks, you can use the necks, you can use them for, they make great fins for sculpting. There's just a billion things you can use these things for. But this is the one that we're going to use this for. This is actually, you know, right on the back, the shoulder. And we're going to take this, it's right off, this is its head. Its head's been cut kind of short. There's the ring neck. And these things just, you know, go down. And we get back here on the shoulder, and you get to pick. I have another one here I'll show you. I use a lot of these covert shoulder feathers over here. I'm going to take this neck feather right in here and just whatever one. Look, I mean, as you see, I'll show it to this side. You can see they start changing. So we've got, they're kind of pointed here, they come down, you go down just a little bit further into this, and they start getting round and, you know, more, there's just more to them. I like to take those. So I'm going to cut, but that, again, completely personal. Good one. Right there. And this is going to be the feather that sits over top of everything. And you're going to have a collar on here, so if it's not quite long enough, don't worry too much about it. And so you'll see a lot of people will come in here like I did on this one, and they cut that groove right there. That's just personal. I'm not going to do it on this one. He didn't do it traditionally, but you can cut that out right there. It just kind of looks cool. It makes it look like two wings. They don't do that anyway, but it looks cool. That's what fly tying's about. All right, so one more thing on this feather. Back in the, I don't know, 70s, early 80s maybe, saw a lot of people lacquering these. And so they didn't, when they're fishing, that they would stay together. And you saw a lot of people do it on, we're going to do another hopper, a Latort hopper, Ed Shinks fly. And I saw a lot of guys that would spray lacquer them so they'd hold together. It's cool while you're tying it. They hold together while you're tying it. But once you fish them, when you lacquer them, when they break apart, they don't go back together. Whereas this one, when you break it off to the side like that, you go back, it'll actually go back together. You dry it, you know, a little bit, and they go back together. So, but when you do it with the lacquer, they don't hold. But we don't need it on this one. We're just going to tie this in. Get back here, and it's going to be broader. And I had that thing sitting here. On some of mine, not on all of them. I do them two different ways. But on some of mine, I take these feathers when they're just too big, and I'll trim it. And so it's flatter, right? It sits on top. You can see this one, I cut the groove out of it. I'm going to lean it towards you. And so when I set this over top, get over there. So I'm not going to set this one. You can see this little groove, so it's like two wings hanging back. I'm going to do it with the traditional feather, just the whole thing. I don't see it changing a thing on the fly. I really don't. And I know that looks a little messy up there right now because I tied into my body. We're going to lose that in a second. It's just, for me, it's easier to tie in. And I go right over top of it. And I got that sitting right on top. Break him off. And now, just want to double check. I'm just looking to see. And then I start looking underneath. And like I said, that one that was hanging, when I cut that piece of pheasant crest, was hanging off to the side. It really doesn't matter. I want it to when it's in. But when I start, I look and I come in here and I pull these off to the side a little bit. I'm going to change the angle. Maybe you can see that a little better. Right there. Can you see that, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. Those feathers right there, those orange feathers, and that's why I tie that in upside down. When you look at these things, they're really shiny. And again, you can use whatever you want. But on this side, it's really shiny and orangey. This side's very pale and gross looking, right? And so don't tie it in so that the shiny, pretty side is being covered. Tie it upside down. That's why you're fighting this thing. That's one of the reasons I use that, try to get that hump out of there. All right, voila. Okay, he's a little messy. I haven't tied one in years. Okay, so now I'm going to cover that just a little bit. I'm using pretty thin thread here. Just want to clean that up just a little. Now we're going to take this deer hair, and this is going to be, you don't want a ton of hackle or of hair when you tie this in. When you looked at the originals, when it was pretty cool, it had like 8, maybe 10 hairs, 5 to a side. And it was very distinct. They were out like this, like legs. It's not supposed to be anything more than legs, so we're going to tie it in with kind of like that. But I want you to leave this, I want you to leave this long, the butt ends, I want you to leave that kind of long. And you'll see why, just when we start trimming it, makes it a little easier. So I'm going to take this, and I like to have the collar on the top. You can see over here, off to the side, you're only seeing, 5, 6, whatever legs it is, however many you like. And so I'm going to take this, but I want you to leave this, really don't cut it off like I normally do, because I've done a lot of videos talking how I do my collar, and then I like to spin the hair and do it differently. And I've mentioned in a lot of them that when Jack showed me how to do this guy, and he'd do his muddler heads, all of the stuff like this, and he'd use 6 and 8/0 thread, nylon, back in the day when the stuff was not very strong. And it's a really unique system. So I'm going to take this what's going to be my legs, my collar, and I'm going to butt it up to the eye. I'm going to set it here, and of course you just got to judge it. I like it to be about 1/3 of the length. I'm going to come in here, just going to get this junk out of the way. So transfer your hand, go from, and when you work with hair, you try to go in bundles. So you come into your fingers like this, and when you do that, you keep working and nothing ever changes. So come in here, I'm going to bundle. I'm going to go right over top of this, kind of look where you're sitting. And I'm going to take 1, 2 turns, and I'm not going to let it go all the way around the hook. But I'm going to start letting this forward here work down around just a little bit, because we're going to use that as part of the head, the body. And so now you can see I'm nice and tight, right? But I haven't let the hair spin around in my hand, so it's still right where it wants. Right there, it's going to be my legs. It'll be off to the side. And now what I'm going to do, and this was Jack, as far as I know, maybe everybody in the old days, he's just the guy that showed me, but he stands right through it. And I want you to see that I'm going 1, 2, 3, right in a row, as close to one thread turn on top of the other. And look at the hair start standing up, right? See how that's all stood up? Now I'm going to pack that in just a little bit. We're going to do one more. But every time when your hair is all laying forward, right? And every time that thread goes around, boom, it stands another hair up. It just keeps standing up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he's doing this with really, really thin thread. So, and this is, because this is flotation, I'm going to pack this just a little bit. Come in here, just tighten it up. And we're going to give it a little bit more, one more little gob of hair. You see how they're standing up, right? It's way easy. Now we're going to take this one, and we're not going to, this one I don't want the tips in here. I just want to, it's easier to work with the thick stuff than it is the thinner. And I left this here because I'm going to be able to pull it back. That's why I left those long, those butts. So when we start trimming it, I'm going to be able to pull it back with my fingers and not have to just keep clipping and clipping. So now, one more time, same thing. Take your thread, spin it to the right so it falls back against your hand, and try to get this semi in the middle, right? Just so you're working with the middle of the batch, of the bundle, I mean. And so you come in here and just lightly work it around. You can see it's starting to go. We're trying to get the hair to go from being sitting on top of the hook to going down in the middle of the hook, right? Just 1 turn, 2 turn, just like this, and just let it go, and you'll do the same thing. Now you see how I'm standing, I'm going 1 turn after another, and that hair is just standing up. And we're done. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's no, it's not trapping the hairs, it's not laying them down. It just keeps setting them up like this. Don't try to go forward in a hurry. Go one after another, and just a hair width is what you're looking for. Stands them up, stands them up, stands them up. Just like that. Okay. Now we're going to look things over, get it off to the side. I do this one with my scissors, unlike usually.
Watch your shoulder if you can.
Whoops, sorry. Usually I do everything with a razor blade. This is such a small little head. I do it with my scissors. Get my shoulder out of here. We're just going to, and this is what I was talking about. When I leave the butts, I can get this and I can get a hold of it and pull it. And as you can see from this overhead camera, I can see that collar, right? So I can get a hold of this stuff, and really it's super simple for me just to go in and trim it up. And if you want that head to be really, pack it really, really tight, you know, just put more hair in there. Just keep pushing it back if you want it really tight. But again, I'm kind of half-assed trying to keep it like the old days when I was looking at some old books the other night, and boy, I don't know if they did it on purpose or if they just didn't care, but there was, I mean, when you go from the Andres and the Cohens and these guys that are just these like super incredible hair people, and you see it nowadays and you see the stuff back then, there's a big difference. You know, I'm somewhere in the middle. I can't hardly do either of them, but anyway, get in here, and this is what I was talking about. I can see my legs, I can see my collar, and I can grab these hairs, and a lot of them, when they're back here just in your way, you can just pull them, just like that. And then you can come in and do a finished trim. I can't do that over my shoulder. And so, but it allows you, if those butts on the collar ones, if they were short, you'd be fighting this constantly. So now we're just gonna come in here. I have to look over the top of my fly. That's why I always pull it out of the vise, and I sit here like this, and I'm trying to get symmetry. And I can't do that well in my vise. I just have to look over top of it, and then I just start trimming it away. And because it's a dry fly, not a streamer, I take more time on them. I find them very aesthetically pleasing, and so I don't like them to look like crap. It's a fly that there's just not that much trim work to do here, so you just sit here and just kind of make it look good. Got that head's, you know, and again, everybody does these different. Everybody has a different idea. How long, how short. I mean, it's all up to you. How heavy packed. I don't know. I've just done them like this forever. It's a cute little fly. One thing you'll find about these is they're smaller than like a lot of the foam hoppers and stuff. And people have kind of got used to the really big, especially in the West, a lot of really big hoppers. And I don't know, I just find these things, I've never seen when a small hopper won't pretty much stick right with the big ones. If it's I mean, if you're in some place where it's like, you know, they're mowing hay or something and there's all those giant hoppers hitting the water, it may be a difference, but I find that these are pretty stay with all the rest of them, especially on the smaller stuff, the Spring Creeks. Okay, we could trim him up. We could sit here and play with this all day, but we'll get it in the vise for now. So this is the Gartside Hopper. Sits really flat. I could use a little bit more trim on that head, but we're not gonna do it. And so you'll see, I'm gonna tilt this a little bit so you can see from the side, that head is a little big, but from the bottom, what you're gonna see, you get a little verniculation or whatever, like chenille, variegated chenille look, because we tubulared it, so the body's nice and tight, it's nice and thick, and so it's like that. And what I really like to see is, I don't know if you can see it because of where the vise is, this orange that's back here. Can you see that, Jeremy? this right in here, you can see that orange, even try to get over here, you can see it a little better. That's what I was looking for. I just think that is so sexy. And I really truly think it makes the fly fish better because it's just one more component that makes it look natural. The head, this is what I said, this head's still a little bit, I should trim that right there. So it should be about that thick. So I'm going to do a little bit more trimming, but for right now you can see you've got your stabilizers, your moose tail. We used the body hair for just a little bit of flotation, dubbed it, counter ribbed it. The hackle's on there. You got that little bit of flight wing underneath it, so your doubles. And the cool thing about this fly is it's 100% natural. No synthetics. It's really cool. It's old school, like Kelly. And you'll really dig it. And if you fish small creeks, I guarantee you, if you fish small spring creeks and stuff, this fly will hunt like anything you've ever seen. Because a lot of these fish are getting pretty hip to foam. And stuff that sits really high in the water, these things sit low in the water. You don't see them as well. They're harder to fish. Going to tax you a little bit. You're going to have to hone your skills a little bit more on watching it. Not a great guide fly in some ways because you don't, when you're watching everybody's flies, it didn't stick up in the water. But man, this thing really hunts, and it's, you know, sexy as all get out. I hope you liked it. Keep safe. Hope it helps you out.